everyone. Welcome to this month's List Self Storage 5 Questions with segment. My name is Cindy Rivera, and today I have the pleasure of having Travis Lawhorne from Janus International Group joining us today to have some fantastic discussion about how they can help you as an owner operator and your facility today. So Travis, why don't you take some time and introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and what Janus International Group does.
Well, hi, Cindy. Yes, thank you for having me and the opportunity to talk a little bit about self-storage, which with Janus International, I've been with the company about 7 years and industry 29 years. So I have been here through a few phases and ebb and flows of self-storage, but still here and still passionate about what I do. So I am the Southeast Regional R3 uh, sales manager, and R3 stands for Restore, Rebuild, Replace. And I think it's going to go right along with these questions that we're going to discuss today.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's jump into our 5 questions today. So first question, Travis, is as the spring and summertime seasons quickly approach, what type of facility maintenance and improvements should owners and operators be considering?
Well, I'd say first of all, this question can really be very overwhelming to an owner operator. The easiest thing is to picture it almost like an elephant, one bite at a time. But having a checklist, per se, a maintenance checklist, and some sort of calendar um, can be really the most effective approach to this. I've just listed a few examples of this, which, by the way, Janus does have a very in-depth maintenance checklist that you are welcome to inquire about anytime. Um, I, I like to describe this as you are inspecting, you're repairing, or you're replacing. Really, the basic moving parts to any storage facility are the doors and the gate system. Um, Essentially, when you create this maintenance checklist, it's going to surround those moving parts, and then obviously a whole slew of other subjects. But those are the moving parts, and they're the most, I'd say, the important for maintenance and also liability reasons. Nothing like being able to have someone hurt because they've not maintained their doors and gate systems.
That's
Um,
very important. Yeah.
yeah, and I'd say kind of the time frames are weekly, monthly, seasonally, and annually. Um, Some of the items that I've also listed here are low voltage checklist. So essentially your access control system, which is part of the gate, electronic door locks, surveillance systems, those sort of things kind of tie into the security and the maintenance of your facility. Gutters and downspouts are a huge thing for a couple of different reasons. Leaking units, leaking roofs. If your gutters back up, that's important. So you don't ever want anything about water to infiltrate a self-storage facility. So trees spread the debris, tenants throwing stuff up on top of the building, which get trapped in gutters, but you don't see those things. So it's out of sight, out of mind. Inspection is very important. And last thing I put would be exterior walls and panels. You're looking for deterioration, rust, again, anything that can essentially engage in a leak of a building. So those are just a few scratching the surface of those items.
Right. Do you find that this checklist of uh, maintenance or improvement items vary by region? So say you're in somewhere like Florida where there are a lot of many storms and hurricanes. Does the frequency of those maintenance and improvement items that you have to look at kind of change a little bit?
Yeah, better I share maybe by an example. For example, in Florida, um, if you're close to the coastal area on either side, or um, basically the salt could deteriorate things a little bit faster. So instead of seasonally, it might be quarterly that you're looking at certain things. It's just going to cause more rust, if you will, there.
Right.
Yes, up north where there's a lot of snow and obviously water's running off because it melts. Again, it could be items that you are looking at different frequencies. So yeah, I would answer that question, yes.
All right. Good to know. All right, on to our second question. For operators who want to add more of a certain unit size but have the typical expansion constraints, what opportunities might they have for adding more unit sizes?
Yeah, I've just chosen a couple of adding more units, meaning when you do this, you're basically adding more revenue because you have more space that you're able to rent. And, it gives you the ability as those spaces rent up um, that possibly have been sitting there vacant for quite some time. At this point, you're increasing your economic occupancy. Both of those obviously put dollar signs behind them. So, a couple of different avenues would be a unit remix. So you take a larger set or a unit or set of units and convert them into smaller units because maybe the large units aren't in as high a demand, and you have a waiting list for your smaller units. Same thing, vice versa. Taking some smaller units, which have sat there vacant for quite some time, and now you need larger units. Um, you know, accomplishing that demand for that marketplace or in the area. Um, mass movable mass portable storage units, which stands for movable additional storage structures. There's also the ability to add more units. You can take our buildings and put them at the ends or at the side of buildings where there's enough room. Um, you can convert some outside parking areas that, when you're renting space, you're going to get more per square foot renting the space as normally you would with an outside parking area. So again, if the demand is there for more units and space to rent as compared to outside parking, it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Great. All right, third question. So for operators with aging doors, what would you recommend they look for when assessing whether it's time to replace them?
It's a great question, and it's right up I guess, the alley or the sweet spot of what Janus does in my division, the R3. Um, again, a checklist is going to be crucial, which Janus also has different maintenance programs that can help owner operators with this as well. But essentially, there's only a couple of things as it relates to doors, and that's the spring tension. Um, Basically, is the door hard to open or close, or is it binding within the guides or the rails of the doors? Um, a tall tale sign that a spring is actually broken would be that the roll up door or the coil unravels. And that obviously it's not going to allow that door to go up and down freely, certainly not easily. And at that point, it also creates a bit of a liability. Never want a door to come down on one of your customers, or the customer shows up and they want to get to their things and they cannot enter their unit because the door is broken. So oxidized or chalky curtains are a good sign that that door is aging. And it may be time at this point to either look to replace it, which is what we recommend for multiple reasons, or we have some operators that choose to paint it. And really, painting doors has its pros and its cons. It's more of a short term solution than a long term. And you're basically adding weight to that door, which they weren't designed, the springs weren't designed to carry more weight than it actually is. So, yes, ma'am.
Interesting. What is just out of curiosity, what is the typical lifetime of a door, or how long do these typically last? Or Mhm.
Yeah. So, really, I mean, that's a big window depending on who manufactured the door.
Mm.
I would say anywhere from 20 to 30 years is a pretty good window for a standard roll-up door. Sometimes sooner we see, especially on the exterior drive-up doors. Outside in the elements, they're not going to last nearly as long as inside of a hallway or a climate controlled building. A Janus door pretty much is going to give you about 35 years of longevity for the basic door that we develop and manufacture, and it's unlike any in the industry.
Great. Interesting. All right. So question number 4. What are some of the revenue and or tax benefits to consider when tackling renovations or improvements at self-storage facilities?
Another great question. Um, there's multiple things that can be accomplished, and typically it's through the guidance of your accounting or your CPA. But you're essentially have the ability to increase the cash flow by decreasing the taxable income by performing a cost segregation study. Many times exposes that type of approach when you make these renovations or improvements to a facility. I essentially just wrote down a couple of things, meaning take tax advantages for all of the roll-up doors or swing doors that you thrown away in the dumpster. Those are actually money as you throw those doors away, but approaching those savings, if you will, on your taxes is not something that a lot of people realize. I put down an example that, essentially 60% in 2024, 60% of the qualifying improvements, which replacing your doors is one, can be depreciated immediately rather than over 39 years. So there's a big difference, and certainly taking advantage of those is not well known. So, Janus again has a company that we've partnered with and can certainly are happy to communicate that with our customers. Mass buildings is another example where you accelerate the depreciation up to $1.2 million in the first year. And it's called Section 179 and a deduction. So it's just kind of the tax advantages that we have been exposed to lately.
Interesting. That is very, very useful information. All right, so we've come to our last question. So when considering adding portables, what kind of questions should operators ask when interviewing manufacturers or suppliers? So I don't know, things like ship time, where they're built, what type of materials are used.
Yes. Our portable buildings are called MASS, which I mentioned, MASS, movable, and I lapsed the acronym there, but mass portable buildings, movable structures. Asking those questions of the other manufacturers, such as the lead times. I do hear the horror stories of lead times for numerous reasons, but essentially, if it's 6 months, that's going to be far too long. Just as an example, Janus's lead time with our buildings are 4 to 6 weeks. So there's a lot of value to that.
And that's from the time that you place your order and have them at your facility.
Yes, ma'am. I like to be conservative and say within 60 days of the time you sign the order for mass buildings, they are erected and on site, ready to rent to that next storage customer. So it's kind of unheard of in the industry. Just want to kind of those hidden gems that Janus has the ability because of our volume. Asking where they are built is an important question. 100% USA is where Janus comes into play in manufacturing our steel buildings. Asking those types of materials that are used can be very important as well. I wrote down just a few examples. Does it have galvanized steel decking? Does it have a pier and header system? Is it a standing seam roof? Is there a resin deck floor? For example, moisture coming up from the ground, you certainly want protection between the ground and the customer's goods. And then is there a wind load or a snow load? Janus mass buildings come with 110 miles per hour wind load and a snow load of 30 pounds. And the one thing about mass that stands out, at least to me and a lot of our customers, are when you put a mass portable building right up next to a single story, non climate drive up storage building, you can't tell the difference. They look exactly the same.
All right, Travis, thank you for your time today. So if our viewers want to get in touch with you after this, how can they reach you?
Yes, they are welcome to reach me at 813 680 3997, or can always email me at travis.lawhorne@janusintl.com.
Great. Thank you for that information. And if you guys want to get in touch, you can also reach out to the Janus group. Their website is on the screen. And thank you today for your time.